You are tuning in to Fabulous and Fortunate, a Monet's Musings production.
Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Fabulous and Fortunate. I'm your host, Amayah Monáe, and thank you for joining me. I say that every time, but I really mean it. Thank you for joining me on this conversation. And this theme is one that I am excited to get into because I deeply feel and know it is time we talk about this because it is a 100% real thing. And it's about time we bring it out into the open and just talk about it. So, those friendships and acquaintanceships that just didn't last forever on earth, but still feel eternal? Those friendships that transcend time, the versions of us that didn't survive together here, I feel still exist somewhere. And, just really quick, I feel like at this time of the year, especially, people start to reminisce on like past friendships and past connections that, you just outgrew each other. And I think sometimes we can quickly just jump to, they're just not a good person and they suck. And, sometimes that is true, but sometimes I think it's okay to be able to say, you know what, we were probably never going to be friends again or ever talk again in that same space or manner. But I deeply appreciate what this person had brought into my life at the time that we were friends or acquaintances, if you want to use that word. Whichever word you use for people in your life who are close to you, that aren't romantic, that is what we are talking about today. And I think one of the most important things to realize is to normalize that not every deep connection is meant to last a lifetime. And I had to realize this. I had to realize that as you step into new phases of life and as you evolve and as you grow and as you learn and as you become who you really were put here to be, you will start to kind of feel like some people just aren't compatible with you anymore. And I feel like once you start to get to the point where your growth is triggering to others, or you feel like you can't even move forward without walking on eggshells around someone, I just don't think that's aligned. And, humans evolve out of alignment with each other, as you grow spiritually, as you grow emotionally, or even as you grow energetically. And the love doesn't disappear. Like, it doesn't mean you don't love a person anymore just because you recognize that they're not able to be happy for you where they are. They're not happy with themselves. So if you're someone who loves to celebrate yourself and you bring that to other people and you wonder why they're just not able to be happy for you, it's because they're not happy with themselves. And I think sometimes that's something that goes so unvoiced in those connections with people that were so deep, so filled with so many wonderful things most of the time. And I think one of the underlying things that can dismantle those type of connections is when one person starts to do really, really great and they're moving along and they're doing the things and they're stepping out in courage and faith and in boldness. And the other person is a bit more stagnant. And I think that's a relational dynamic that is not as talked about because it's uncomfortable to talk about. But I think that talking about that does have the ability to set some people free. And, there are challenges that challenge people's sense of self, their mind, their spirit. And there are also certain ailments that people face, that folks face, that they are just not talking about with others, such as their mental health, their identity shifts, trauma, internal battles. So their inability to show up for you, it has nothing to do with you. And I think some people just need to know, someone just needs to know, someone's inability to show up for you at a time when you need it for them to show up for you, sometimes it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes it's just they're going through something like really tough, and they're not even able to emotionally regulate themselves enough to have their own thing going, but still be able to show up for you. It takes a very emotionally and spiritually intelligent person to be able to have their own thing going on, but still show up for others. And a lot of people just aren't able to do that. A lot of people just haven't done the inner work necessary to reach that level. So, a lot of times it looks like acting passive aggressive in friendships, or just doing really weird things to people that you say you care about. And looking back at some of the things that had happened with me and, acquaintances, and that was before I knew what I knew now, I kind of just learned to not take it personal. I'm like, I am not taking this personal. That has everything to do with you and your inability to meet yourself kind of where you're at. And, some people that come into our lives are just teachers. They're just supposed to teach us something for our life at that time, and it doesn't mean that they're supposed to stay. I am so deeply grateful for some of those teachers that I've had who have really taught me some lessons, and they were not easy to learn. Some of them were very painful, but looking back, I'm like, I'm just so glad I already integrated that lesson so that I'm done with it. And then, some endings aren't even failures with some of these people. They're a graduation. And sometimes you just outgrow people, but it doesn't mean you are abandoning them emotionally. I feel like you can still love someone and just know that their energy is just not safe. They're just not aligned, and they're just not supportive for you. And if you continue to, kind of lie to yourself sometimes and just say, oh yeah, I'm still going to give this person an entryway because they were there for me at a certain time, that is just very unhealthy. And that's why some friendships or acquaintanceships feel very warm in memory, but it was just heavy. You just knew that they were unhealthy for you. You just knew that you couldn't breathe around them. And I think that I really enjoy talking about this in situationships from the past, because I've recently come to know and feel what true friendship is. And I think that's why I can't even make any excuses for how certain things worked out in the past. I'm like, it just wasn't okay. But what I love now is that I'm able to look back at those moments with love and reverence, because I know what true friendship type of love feels like. And I'm just so honored to now know the difference between that and feeling like I have to walk on eggshells around someone. Like, imagine having to walk around someone who you say is supposed to be someone who is deeply supportive of you and inspiring you, and you feel like you're going to say the wrong thing every time you're around them. That's just not love. And that's just not the kind of acquaintanceship, situationship, or even friendship that cultivates a life where you feel like you're being fabulous. That doesn't cultivate a life where you feel like you're being seen and supported. If anything, that would actually cause you to be very insecure. And I think when you start thinking in terms of like, okay, like I can choose to either be around people who make me want to dim myself, or I can choose to be myself around people who want more of me. And I think when you look at it that way, it's kind of like, oh, we have to make the choice, right? We have to make the choice to love ourselves enough to know when something is not healthy and when something is just not for us. And I feel like when some of those relational friends type of acquaintanceships crack, it kind of just exposes what needed to be healed. And you can just thank that friendship for who it helped you become and let it go. And I think that's the most important thing I want for anyone listening to this to take from this is if you don't let that friendship go instead of harboring everything that they did wrong, it's kind of like you carry that into your next connections because you're not even gonna like be able to open yourself up enough to truly let that person in. And I feel like there's so many, young ladies who have gone through a lot of just drama with other women in their early years, and it can kind of scar you. But I feel like if you don't, allow yourself to know what you want, know what you need, know what you don't want, know what you don't need in those type of dynamics, it's like you carry this wound with you. Like, oh, you can't trust people. Oh, I can't trust anyone. Yes, you can. You can trust. You can do it. Now, should you trust everyone? Absolutely not. But it's okay to allow people to show you that you can trust again. And I think some of us can just automatically shut ourselves off to trusting people again, right? If we've been hurt. But that's not fair to you. Because some of the deepest ways we heal here is through our relationships with others. Because if it's just you and you're just doing healing work on your own and you're just alone all the time, that's awesome. There are some periods where we do need to just be alone and just be by ourselves, and we just need to get our mind right. I am an advocate for there are just some seasons where you just want to focus on just a specific thing, and that is 100% respectable. But if you're like going years and not talking or allowing anyone in your life, and you think you've just done all the healing work and you think there's just nothing left to be healed, right? And it's like because you're literally by yourself. You have no one, pushing your buttons. You have no one challenging who you think you are. It's kind of just you. And I think that we weren't put on earth, right, to just be alone all the time. We could be alone all the time, but I don't think we put here on earth for that. And I feel like intimate relationships, like the friendships and relational situations and stuff, that's where we face ourselves. These friendships and acquaintanceships, they show us our wounds around belonging. They reveal our insecurities. They reveal where we're abandoning ourselves. They reveal control. They reveal comparison. These relational dynamics are so revealing, and I think that's why they end up cracking the way they do sometimes. Because imagine someone, doesn't know who they are and they know they're not doing what they should be doing. And they have a friend in their life who every time they see them they're talking about their goals and they're acting on their goals and they're doing amazing things and they're motivating their friend. If that friend's not ready to meet them where they're at, they're just gonna be triggered every time they're around them. That's just the human condition, and there's no way around that. Unless they've done deep inner work and they use that friend to motivate them, it's going to be very difficult for them to just even be around them, just to be honest. And that's just how it is. And I think that being able to openly talk about this is one of the first steps. And I think the second step is to call in soul-aligned connections if you don't have them already. I think that at certain phases in life, it's very important to feel seen by at least someone who truly sees you, because not everyone's going to see you the way that you are, and they're not meant to, right? But your people are always going to see you, and they are going to always get you, and you're going to feel your best self around them. You're going to feel like there's nothing you can't do. You're going to feel like you can do anything in the world. That's when you know a connection is aligned. You're going to feel like you can just do anything with this person. If it was you and them against anything else, you're going to be just fine because you have this person by your side. I think that's when you've found like a true connection that literally can stand the test of time. But the fact of the matter is that there are some connections that are just not meant to stand that test. And that's okay. And I think this whole episode and some of the things we discussed today is, kind of important to consider in our lives because the people we're around do make up our life. It's not just us when we're around others. We're allowing others into our space. We're allowing them into our energy field. And I just think it's very vital to be able to sometimes just let go of the past relational dynamics with grace instead of harboring, resentment towards them. I ask myself, okay, instead of being resentful or even going towards that emotion, I'll ask myself, what did I learn from this? How can I make sure this does not happen again? And I think it's so important, especially if you're a woman or a man who has been in a previous situational or acquaintanceship where you felt scarred. You just felt like you were just done terribly. I think it's so important to be able to release those with love for yourself because, there are so many times where I'll see someone go online, right? And they'll just start talking about all the things that this friend did to them in the past and how dirty they did them. And they're this terrible person, right? And I'm like, you can do that. Or you can just choose to know the red flags and know what to never settle for. And I think I appreciate those kind of videos from the aspect of letting other people know the signs of certain things instead of just keeping it to yourself. But I think it only becomes a problem if it becomes you going on a tirade all the time about how you can't trust anyone and that's why I don't have friends and that's why I don't open up. And I'm like, well, you're closing yourself off to the abundance of love that's available to us. And I think that's not the best. So in essence, when a deep relational situationship or acquaintanceship leaves, I do believe that God opens the space for the ones meant to support our current evolution. And I also think there are truly some connections that are timeless and that you know are going to last forever. I 100% know that. That is 100% a thing. There are some people that is just like, it's a forever type of thing, and I don't have to say anything else. But there was, various people I've met in the past that I just know, like, there is just no reason for us to continue anything. And I think that's okay. It's totally fine. I truly wish them the best. But I think it's so healthy to be able to know when enough is enough. When enough is enough with a friend, when enough is enough with feeling like you have to walk on eggshells around someone who calls themselves that. It's just, yeah. So some friendships exist beyond the bounds of time and space. And even if we never speak again, the love was real. There's so many, wonderful people who I met on my journey so far, but they just weren't able to take me when I got to a certain point. And oh my gosh, I'm even getting emotional thinking about it, but it has hurt me. This is why I love this podcast, because, we just get so deep on here. And some of those relational dynamics and those acquaintanceships is, there were a few that were really just able to come up to me after, and they were like, you were just everything, and I just wasn't able to keep up. And it made me feel some type of way. And I think my younger self, there were so many times she needed that, today. I'm like, okay, well, if it don't work out, I'm good. I'm moving along. This is a moving train. We have to keep going, But there were so many times my younger self needed to hear that from some of those people. And I want to extend this to anyone who needs to hear this. Sometimes people just can't keep up. And it's not even about keeping up, but some people make the relational dynamic or the friendship about competition. Even if you're not, they have made it about a competition. So when someone's made something a competition, what comes with the competition, right? Rules and regulations. And maybe I can talk about that on another episode, because that's a whole thing about competition and how that can hold you back and certain dynamics and all that. But all that being said, it is so beautiful to be able to have this conversation. It's so needed. We need more love in the world, and I'm bringing it. Thank you for listening today. I just want to affirm you that you can just thank people for what they've brought into your life without guilt. And I think I used to feel guilty sometimes when I knew I was outgrowing someone and I was still just like holding on, because that's just what I did. I don't know why, but that's what I did. So even if we never speak again, the love was real, the lesson was divine, and the chapter was sacred. It's okay to say that to people and move on with your life. But I feel like when you don't give yourself that closure, it's not about them needing the closure. It's about you. Sometimes we need to give ourselves the closure for certain connections because we feel like, well, what did I do to make that? And it's like, no. When you start taking it personal, that's when you start going left. It's not personal. You can't take it personal sometimes, even though it feels like it. Some people are literally just trying to get through another day. And you're wondering why your shining and glowing is making them upset. Like, come on, And at a certain point, it's like I realized I had to love myself enough to be able to know that I could not tolerate that. I had to be able to say, you know what? I've been through enough things that have made me cry and sad. Why not choose people who make me feel good about myself? Why not choose people who want me to continue to grow and evolve, who aren't comparing what I'm doing to what they're doing, So, thank you for listening. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I invite you to reflect on one acquaintanceship that really helped shape you into who you are today, that you're just not with anymore or talking to anymore. I would love for you to bless it, release it, and enjoy your life. Thank you. Talk to you next time. Mwah.
This has been Amayah Monáe with Monáe's Musings. And until we speak again, may your head and your heart speak with one voice. Peace.